What is up, guys? I'm Marcellus Williams, aka TheSwolefessor, education on health, fitness, and social well-being. And in this video, I'm going to be giving my review over the Stance Velocity Tracker, as well as giving my thoughts over velocity tracking as a whole as it pertains to powerlifting. Do I think it's useful? Who do I think it's useful for? So, with all that being said, let's get right into it. Now, to start this video off, disclaimer, as always, I am not working with the Stance company as far as I'm not involved with the company. They have not paid me to do this. I'm not a sponsored athlete, nothing like that. You guys already know whenever we're doing reviews on this channel, I try to be as objective as possible and as bias-free as possible. Obviously, we all have our own subjective biases, but I just want to make it clear that I'm doing this because I want to do it. Anytime that I review anything on this channel, it is to give you guys better insight into things that I'm using with my own training, as well as just giving you guys feedback. So that way, if you're curious about a certain product, hey, is this good for me? Is this not good for me? You guys can reference these videos, right? Same thing that I did with, like, the Advances shoes, all the different knee sleeves that are behind me, different belts, all those different products. That's how I always plan to be when it comes to this channel. If I ever do take any type of sponsorship with a company, I always try to make sure that if I plan on doing any type of review for the product, that it is before I've even considered any type of sponsorship opportunity with the company, right? Which is great because it just keeps me honest, and that way, you guys know the feedback you're getting from me is just how I truly feel about it. No financial incentive involved. Now, with that being said, I should start off with explaining the fact that the whole reason that I started using the Stance Velocity Tracker in the first place is because a few of my clients were already using it, right? So I was already kind of, getting a little bit of interest from that standpoint. And then the company just decided to send it to me as well. And you guys already know, anytime a company sends me something, I'm going to try it out and see how I want to go about it. And it worked out great because I've been using it for the past few months, so pretty much since the start of this year. And due to how I was training, which if you guys saw my last YouTube video, you guys know how I was training up until just very recently, because I'm back with my first block back on quote-unquote regular programming. I'll go over that in another video. But I was only squat, benching, and deadlifting once a week. So due to the fact of how fatigued and sore that I was constantly from pushing all those other movements closer to failure on a week-to-week basis, and the fact that I was only squatting, benching, and deadlifting once a week, I didn't have the same reference of, oh, based upon my secondary day, I can predict how my primary day is going to feel. Or, oh, this felt this good on my back, or I felt this type of pop off the chest. None of that was really a factor with how I was training because everything kind of consistently felt the same in the sense of things always felt really sore and things always felt relatively heavy because I wasn't trying to maximize top end performance, right? So having something like the Stance Velocity Tracker was very, very useful because it allowed me to just objectively be like, okay, how well was I moving on week 1? How well am I moving by comparison on week 2, right? How am I moving on week 3? How am I moving by comparison on week 4, right? Since everything felt kind of consistently the same, I didn't feel the same huge elevation in fitness, it gave me another data point to look at that I could use as a metric. I also couldn't necessarily just go based upon like how things were looking in video, since that could be all over the place as well, right? So having more specific data was useful, and that's the whole reason why I was using it for the past few months, and I'm continuing to use it right now with my current training now being back on more comp-specific powerlifting programming. So to start off, as far as my review of the product, let's just go over the product itself. So this is it. There we go. There we go. That's about as good as that's going to get. So this is the Stance Velocity Tracker, right? And as you guys can see, it's very small, it's very compact, very user-friendly. And that's probably the first big pro I have to give to this compared to other velocity trackers. I don't like a lot of velocity trackers just because of how bulky they are. I don't feel like having to have something big and bulky in my gym bag. I don't like whenever it has a little wire attached to it and I have to make sure I set that up. This is really easy to use because literally, like, it's just got a nice little Velcro strap, right? You put on the barbell, you tighten it up, and you're good to go. And I'll even have a video of that here just so you guys can see what it's like setting it up, right? So it's really convenient to use. It takes up no space at all. You could carry this around in your pocket if you wanted to, and it definitely won't take up space in your gym bag. So it's really convenient as far as that, which as small a detail as that is something that I know matters to me and probably matters to a lot of you as far as powerlifters who already have, your belt, your sleeves, your wrist wraps, your chalk bag, whatever else you guys carry in your gym bag, right? So it doesn't take up much space. So it's just really convenient in regards to that. As far as the app itself, right? It's really easy to use. It's very user-friendly. I like the fact that it gives you different options, right? So for example, whether you're choosing the squat or bench, because that is one thing I will say right now. Right now, it's not able to be used for tracking your deadlift. That's probably, not probably, that is objectively the biggest con to it right now. I know that's something the company is working on. They're trying to finalize it so that it can be useful for both deadlifts and even accessory moves, but as of right now, it can only be used for squat and bench. With that being said, what you guys will see is whenever you click on the option for squat, right, you have the option of low bar squat, high bar squat, and front squat. I don't know if they eventually plan on adding more variations in there, like SSB or pause squat or tempo, but for right now you have those options, right? And then with bench press, you have competition bench, you have touch and go bench, you have Larson press, feet up bench. So you've got some options in terms of what variation you're using. Once you pick the variation, right, then you can you can type in the number for the load that you have on the bar, right? And once you type that number in, you can also go ahead and decide, okay, is this a warm-up set? Is this a last warm-up set? Is this a top set? Is it a back-off set? And what's cool about that is once you put that data in and then you track your first set for the day, it's even going to ask you, hey, is this your primary session, your secondary, your tertiary, your quaternary session? So it's really cool because with this app, it allows you to track not just how your velocity and how your speed is going set to set within the session, but also, hey, this is how your Larson is trending compared to your Larson last time. This is how your primary bench looks compared to your last primary bench session. Here's how your secondary bench looks compared to your last secondary bench session as far as comparing the weight. Hey, 70 kg moved at this speed last week, and now it's moving at this speed this week, right? So it's really, really cool that you can not only see how your speed's going up and down across your sets during the session, but you compare it session to session relative to the session that you're actually on, which is great because as you guys know, if you've been watching my channel or anything related to powerlifting now, we have different expectations for different days. I don't expect my primary day to move the same way as my secondary day. So comparing my secondary squat speed to my primary squat speed doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but comparing how a primary day squat moves compared to another primary day squat can be very, very useful, right? Now, like I said, for me, what was cool about it for the past few months of training was since I was only doing everything once a week, I could just see that, okay, even if nothing feels like it's getting better week to week, I can see that, oh, hey, my 120 kg warm up, my 170 kg warm up, or my 140 kg warm up on bench, whatever it may be, is objectively moving better this week than what it was the previous week. And what was really cool to see with how I was training was even on the once a week frequency, the trend of my fitness elevating up stayed pretty consistent from weeks 1 through 4, the same way it would on my higher frequency training, in the sense that week 1, my speed was always pretty good because it's very lightweight, right? And I'm coming off of the fitness of the previous week 4. Week 2, my speed wouldn't seem quite as good. Like it would seem like I wouldn't be moving quite as well from a speed perspective due to the load increase and the fact that my fitness wasn't that high up. But then on week 3, my speed would be a lot better relative to my week 2. And then week 4, I would be in a really good spot as far as like the relative speed of my warm-ups. And of course, the week 4 top set might move slower than the week 3 top set. Typically speaking, my week 3 top set on the squat, for example, is the fastest because I have that higher fitness off of week 1 and 2, even though the load's heavier. But then the week 4 load is high enough to where it's going to slow down, right, relatively, but all my warms leading up to that point move faster than on the week 3. So it was really cool to see that data because I already know that's how my body responds, right? So that's the thing that I like about it. I also like the fact that you have the options to like put the RPE ins for your set if you want to, but you don't have to. And the reason why I like that is because there's other velocity trackers where basically based upon how something moves, it tries to give you a suggestion or recommendation of what you should do. Hey, this moves slow, so maybe you need to decrease the weight, or hey, don't go for this range, or hey, this is the most you should go for the day. And I'm personally not a big fan of that because we all know that we all respond differently, right? I know for a fact that even on a week 2, even if my warm-ups seem like they're moving slower than my week 1, I know it's just because my fitness is a little bit down, but I know I'm still good for that week 2 range, and I know that I need to be within that week 2 range to set myself up for the following week, right, on week 3. So if it was something where the app would tell you like, oh, hey, that last warm-up wasn't as fast as last week, so you need to, scale the weight down, well, that could get in my head, right? And if I were to scale the weight down and not take what I need to on the week 2 range, that's not going to set me up well for the following week 3, right? So I like that this app doesn't do that. It will give you some messages here and there, but it's more like encouraging messages. Like when it's like a last warm up, it'll be like, hey, lock in, or when it's your top sets, like, hey, kill this set, right? Or if it's your back off sets, it'll be like, hey, don't ease up on like the gas, right? Basically, hey, still be intentional even though it's your back off sets. I love stuff like that because that's really cool. But basically, it's just there to give you data. And even when you do things like, hey, you put in what the RPE was for like a set, and then maybe you compare that to your RP7 set last week, it may show you like, hey, this RP7 set was slower than last week's RP7 set, or hey, based upon this, it would seem like the RP for this set was higher than what you wanted. It will give you that data and information, but it's not telling you what to do with that data information. I think that's something that's very, very important and part of why I like this app. Not only is it really easy to use as far as putting on the barbell, not only is it really user-friendly, not only is it really good at tracking data consistently from your warm-ups during the session or session to session relative to the week, but it doesn't try to be more than what it needs to be, which is simply a tool, right? So I've been enjoying it a lot. And now that I've been using it with my more, normal style of training, I'm well, not even fully back to normal. Like I'm, benching twice a week right now, squatting twice a week, deadlifting twice a week. Obviously, I can't use it for deadlift yet, but now that I'm doing that, it's cool to even see the comparisons of my speed between, okay, there is a big distinction in how fast I move on a primary day compared to a secondary day. And then, of course, I can see how I'm moving relatively secondary to secondary or primary to primary. So I like the stance velocity tracker a lot. And I think a lot of it is just the fact that they really are trying to, from what I'm experiencing, have it be just a really good tool to give you more data. It's no different than like, if you're choosing to record your videos, and that's another cool feature about it is whenever you're utilizing it, right? It has a feature where you can just start the set, so then it'll start tracking your velocity, or you can start the set with the recording. So it'll automatically pull the camera on your phone, right? So that way you can be recording the set while it's also still tracking your velocity. So I think that's very useful as well. So I love that. But it's the same thing where if I'm watching a video, right, and I'm seeing how that warm-up set moved, it's just to see, okay, what's my positioning like? What's my speed like? It doesn't necessarily indicate if I need to go up or down, right? Because I've had days where my last warm-up doesn't feel as good as what I wanted to, but I know what to correct so I can still go up, right? I've had other days where my last warm-up looked really, really good speed-wise, but I can just tell that, no, I'm off. Let me be smart, take the low end of the range, and that ends up being the right call, right? So that kind of gets into the second portion of this video because that's pretty much my thoughts on the stance velocity tracker. Out of any velocity tracker that I've used, it's my favorite one for all the reasons that I mentioned. And I'm really, really excited for them to hopefully be able to, quickly get things integrated as far as using it for deadlift or using it for accessories. I think it's gonna be very useful. And there's just so many features with it and some of them I haven't even gotten into because I don't even need to play with some of these features, but I like that what you're getting straightforward as far as what is available to you is very simple and easy to use. And if you want to start getting more detail with the features, like how you insert your RPEs or how you adjust things based upon what rep range you're doing and looking at the data collectively, you can do that, right? Like the fact that I can just go into my low bar squat sessions and just see how everything's moving, low bar session, but then how I can directly compare primary to primary. I love that. All that's really easy. But if I want to get super detailed with that data, then I can do so. And then as far as my clients who are using it, right, it's really good to be able to give them another metric as well, right? Whether it be to like, hey, look, this is what this is looking like. Let's be careful with how hard we're pushing. Or, hey, this is actually moving really, really well. Be more confident. Things of that nature, right? So I've really been enjoying it overall. But as far as velocity tracking, period, and do I think this is something that is a make or break for a lifter or make or break for a coach's system? And do I think that everybody should be using it? The answer is simply no. I don't think this is a make or break for anybody's system, right? And the reason why I'm saying that is because I've been going my entire coaching career without using any type of velocity tracking for myself or my lifters, right? So I will never go so far as to say that it's a make or break. It's just another tool that can be useful, right? I think it's something where I think we're going to see people start to utilize it more now that we're just getting stuff like the stance velocity tracker and just getting these different apps that are coming out where coaches can actually track this data more consistently and use it in a way that actually makes sense, whereas relative to the individual. Sure, because I think the problem with it before is I think a lot of people would just be looking at the speed and nothing else, right? They let the speed be the end all, be all of everything. You just can't do that, right? There's different reasons why you may be moving faster or slower on one session compared to another, and there's lots of reasons why you might be moving faster compared to another lifter, and that was another thing that was frustrating when a lot of people started getting involved in velocity, was trying to compare to one another and be like, well, whenever my speed is this, the RP is this, so if your speed is this, the RP is that, and that's just not good, right? So with that being said, in terms of who do I think this is useful for? I think this is useful for lifters who really know their bodies, right? This is not something that I would want a brand new lifter or someone who's more like beginner or low intermediate lifter to use, right? And if I did have them use it, it would almost be purely to help them kind of get a better gauge of maybe their RPEs. But there's a lot of stuff that I think you learn as a lifter by feeling it out on your own over time. You have to learn your body. You have to learn what your speed is like. You have to learn how your fitness trends session to session and week to week. And the problem that I would have is if somebody doesn't know their body really well, they would get too in their head when it comes to seeing this data, right? When they would see like, oh man, my warm up moved. My 120 kg warm moved slower this week than last week. They might start getting their heads already and thinking, oh, it's not going to be a good session, or they're not good for the top end of the range. Instead of maybe approaching it from the standpoint of like, oh, okay, well, maybe I need to just wake up a little bit. Let me actually push myself harder on this next warm up and actually move it with intention. Boom, now I'm in a good spot, right? So I believe that a lifter needs to really know their body well first. And I also feel that a coach needs to have a good handle on his system as far as how you're looking at things from a standpoint of RPE, reps in reserve, weight in the tank, just really knowing how your lifters move and what the trends of their bodies are first. I think that you would, be doing yourself a disservice to not get that down first before throwing in this extra tool that's just going to give you even more data information that you might not be yet ready to practically use, right? So that's the first thing I'd say. Like most of my clients who are using it, Ade, my client Kwaku from Canada, Jamar, Leanne, these are all lifters where they are advanced lifters. These are all world-class lifters, right? So they know their bodies and they know how to gauge their bodies. They know how to gauge their speed. They aren't going to let a warm-up set not moving quite the way they want or as fast as they want get in their head when they know what they're capable of doing, right? They'll know that, hey, if I'm strong enough to take this weight for the day, they're going to do that regardless of what the tracker tells them, right? It's just another piece of data in the same way that if they were to watch a video of a recording and be like, okay, yeah, I'm a little bit slower than what I want, but I know I'm strong enough for whatever the range is for the day, right? Whereas, once again, a lifter who's not as experienced might watch the recording of their lift and be like, oh, that moved really, really slow, start doubting themselves, so then they take the low in the range, or they go below the range, or they just call it there, right? So I don't think this is a tool, as far as velocity tracking in general, that I would want a newer lifter to use, or a lifter who doesn't feel like they know their body really well, right? Now, with that being said, what is cool about the stance velocity tracker as a whole is that it's something where, once again, you don't have to worry about it giving you all this input on what to do with the data that you're giving. And you also don't have to use all the different metrics that it has for data. You can do something as simple as like, hey, you're just tracking the velocity of the set, seeing how that warm-up moved, cool. You do your next warm-up set, you see how that moved, cool. You have the data there, but you don't have to necessarily do anything with it. So I do like that, right, compared to a lot of other velocity trackers. But it's still something where I'm like, is this something that I would recommend personally right now to most of my clientele? The answer is probably not. I just don't think that most of them necessarily need it. Now, in terms of enjoyment, I think that a lot of lifters could actually benefit from this. It does make the training fun. There is something fun about actually seeing what the speed of a set is and being like, oh man, I'm moving slower than last week. Let me be more intentional, and seeing if you actually can get a speed boost just from being more intentional, because sometimes that's what it is. That's what I found it was for me oftentimes. It'd be a thing where, okay, if it's a week 2 and a warm up is moving slower than like on the week 1, I'm not as concerned about that. But when it's a week 3 and my 170 warm up is slower than what it was on week 2, I know that that's just me being lazy, or I'm not being as intentional as I could be. So then I kind of lock in a little bit more mentally for the next set, and then it moves really, really well. So that's a lot of fun, and I find that to be an enjoyable aspect of this app, right? But once again, is this something where I would say it's like a make or break of velocity tracking? Is something that I think that everyone should just start incorporating? No. Do I think that as the system gets more refined, or if somebody's system is heavily dependent on things like speed for specific sessions, that can be useful? Absolutely. Like, for example, something that I think can be really good for this is using it for priming sessions, for example, right? Meaning, if I have a day that's more static, let's say it's like a priming session where they're touching around the same load threshold each week anyway, but I can objectively see that the speed of that load is getting faster every single week the way it needs to, then that's awesome. Or if I can see in advance that, you know what? That moved a lot slower than what it should be relative to the data that we've had before in terms of how the finish should be trending, then maybe I can start to make adjustments as needed before we get to the point where we realize, oh man, we crashed and burned because oh, you know what, our fitness was trending too low on this day and I should have made an adjustment already, but I just couldn't quite tell from just what I was seeing visually. But oh, the speed gave me that extra insight, right, from the velocity tracking. Or maybe, man, this day is trending really, really well, maybe too well. Maybe we need to kind of pace it back a little bit, right? I think it's useful for things like that, but once again, that's only useful for me because I already have a system of knowing what certain days are for and what I'm looking for performance-wise from a primary day to a secondary day or a tertiary day, or what's a high-performing day compared to just a priming session, right? So that's why I say, is this a make or break? No, but if you're someone where your system likes to utilize data in this type of way, then I think the stance velocity tracker would be great for you, right? Assuming that they do, once again, get the delta incorporated, because that's the only thing, right? I can say whatever I want about this compared to other velocity trackers, but with other velocity trackers, they can track squat, bench, and deadlift, whereas right now, there's one lift here that you can't track altogether, right? Now, once they fix that and then they're able to use it for that and they're able to use it for other stuff like accessories, then I think that's gonna be awesome, especially from the accessory standpoint, since we know when it comes to accessory work for hypertrophy anyway, and you're trying to train closer to failure, we know that how much that bar is slowing down is a big indicator of how close we truly are to failure. So if someone's like, oh, coach, is an RP9 set, but your reps stayed around the same consistent speed, then we know that's not the case, right? So hopefully Stance is able to, get those adjustments done here in the next few months or so, because once that happens, then I'll be able to just say that much more positive things about the app. But as of right now, those are my thoughts overall in terms of the stance velocity tracker. Those are my thoughts overall as far as velocity tracking in of itself. Like I said, it's not a make or break, but I think it can be a useful tool for more advanced lifters or for coaches whose systems maybe have days where the speed of how the bar is moving can tell them a lot with what they're looking for in terms of how fitness is trending for their athletes. But yeah, that is pretty much all I have to say, guys. That is it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you did. If you're not, leave a comment down below. Let me know what can we do better. Like the video, share, subscribe. Keep it simple, specific, scientific. I'll catch you guys later.